Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Top 5 Things Fits Should Know About series. I'm Priya Patel, past chair of the Quad AI Fit Committee. In this session of our series, we will cover the top 5 things Fits should know about choosing an AI career. Our guest presenter is Dr. Rebecca Scherzer. Dr. Scherzer is a professor of pediatrics at the Ohio State University College of Medicine and Nationwide's Children's Hospital. She has been part of our fellowship program since its inception in 2008 and has been a program director since 2015. She has worked on many committees within the Quad AI and has been on the Quad AI Board of Directors since 2023. One of the goals throughout her career has been to increase medical student and resident engagement with the field to continue to bring in outstanding fellows to our training programs. Welcome, Dr. Scherzer, and thank you for leading this session. I will turn it over to you to get us started on your top 5 items.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to talk on this topic. It is one of my favorites to discuss. And so I am happy to bring up, I think, lots of different things to consider when you are thinking about careers in allergy and immunology. Let me just start out by saying you picked the best field ever. And I know I'm probably biased, but it really just is such a great field. The depth and breadth of our diseases, our symptoms, our treatment options, like, is just incredible. And for that reason, there's lots of different ways to be involved and think about how your career can go in allergy and immunology. So again, great job picking the best field. I'm going to start with kind of that topic in general. So the first of five, is just that there are an incredible diversity of career paths. And I apologize to anyone listening to this who goes on a different path than one of the things I listed and didn't go through them all. So just thinking about different ways to practice in allergy and immunology. You can be in private practice, and our private practices are incredible. They are still very engaged. Those who work in private practices are still incredibly engaged in education and advocacy and research. So private practice doesn't mean that you won't get to work in those areas. When you think about private practice, there's so many different ways to be in a different kind of or in different groups. So you could be in a solo practice where you're the only practitioner. You could be in a small group or a mid-sized group or even a large group. There's a lot of multi-specialty groups out there, and sometimes that's from an insurance standpoint that, there's strength in numbers when you're negotiating things with insurances. So some of the multi-specialty groups might involve pediatrics and allergy and immunology, or internal medicine and allergy and immunology. There's plenty of ENT and allergy and immunology groups out there, and that's just naming a few. So there's a lot of ways to think about multi-specialty groups. There's also private equity groups, which we're seeing more and more of across the country. And that's where a private equity company actually buys up practices and helps run those practices. So we are definitely seeing more of that. And I'd say in the past couple of years, for the first time, we're also seeing concierge practices. So concierge practices, they can definitely vary, but a lot of times the model is they have less patients in their total number of patients, so they can provide a lot more kind of hands-on and frequent appointments and allow to better streamline patient care at times. And so those concierge practices have different models on how they take or don't take insurance, but that we're definitely seeing kind of a run-up of concierge practices, which you're seeing in primary care a lot too. So again, just thinking about the private practice area in allergy and immunology, there's so many different ways to practice and be involved. You can also practice in academics. You could be someone who's clinically focused. You can be a physician scientist, which is such an important part of moving our field forward. You can blend the two. There's plenty of people who spend half their time in research and half their time really clinically focused. We have a lot of practitioners in allergy and immunology who are in significant leadership positions in medical education. So we have section chiefs, division chiefs, we have department chairs in the field of allergy and immunology. We have folks who are clerkship directors who have leadership roles in medical schools, such as chairs or deans. So again, lots of different ways to get involved in academics, not just in allergy and immunology, but thinking about medical center structures on a whole from a business standpoint and from an education standpoint. You can work in QI, you can work in advocacy. So I'm kind of putting these under the kind of the heading of academics, but those are areas that in private practice you can work in too. So many different and important parts in our field to consider. And so that's just thinking about private practice and academics, kind of really thinking through clinically forward jobs in a lot of different ways. You can also work for the government, so also can be a research or clinically based job, and so lots of different ways to work for the government. And you can also work in industry. So when I think about working in industry, that definitely is an area that has grown a lot, and we have a lot of really wonderful people working and thinking through, working with our folks in academics and in private practice and clinical trials, and again, continuing to move our field forward from a diagnostic and treatment option. So again, you can have an incredible number of different career options when you think about our field. And I love that. I always tell people when they're thinking about the field, you can be, work in small town, rural Ohio, all the way to being a bone marrow transplanter for those rare immunodeficiencies. You can work for the government, you can work for industry. So all of those things are available to you in our field. So I just think we're so lucky to have all of that, all of those options and all of those opportunities. So that brings me to number two. So I've just talked through a lot of different career options that are out there, and you will find that a lot of people change their path from a career standpoint. So just because you think something coming into fellowship or even coming out of fellowship doesn't mean that has to be your career path along the way. There are a lot of people that find great fulfillment and joy in one area, but as they move along in their career, they want to add in other things or think about things a different way. So you'll see folks who are in private practice who move over to academics. You'll see people who are starting academics and move over to private practice. You'll see folks that stay within maybe their academic center or their private practice, but change what their career picture is. So maybe they started out as a physician scientist and decided to take a more clinical route, or the opposite. Thought they'd be in the more clinical route, but really found passion in being a physician scientist and change over to that option. You also can have someone who moves up in the field, such as, thinking through from a medical education standpoint, do you become a clerkship director, a program director? Do you become a chair or a dean? So all of those things can change along the way. And that's all good. It's growth and it's finding what your passion is. And you may not know you love advocacy or medical education or QI until you spent a lot of time in it. So that's, I think, a really important number two, that just because you're going down this direction doesn't mean that is the only direction and the direction you have to take. So I think that's really an important thing to consider. As you're thinking about all this, especially as you think through the different opportunities and if you want to make any changes, finding mentorship is so important. You can think about that on multiple different levels. So obviously your program director, your associate program director, the other faculty in your division or section or department are all people that you can look to and help find guidance. And for a lot of departments, you'll see that people work in all these different areas. And you'll see that people kind of move through them again as they move along in their career. So, really looking for that guidance locally can be incredibly helpful. We're very lucky in academics and in so many cities. We have wonderful private practice allergists that we can also look to for guidance. So, if you're thinking about the difference of practicing in academics and private practice, and you really want to like think through that on a different kind of level, from a financial standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint, all those kind of things. You've got probably in your community great local allergists who'd be happy to walk through that with you. And that way you can learn more about their practice too, if that's something that you're interested in. Maybe that even can lead to a job opportunity. So thinking through that. I also think thinking through local folks who may not be in our field can be incredible mentors. So if you're interested in ethics, advocacy, QI, research on maybe a basic science level, and you don't have that in your division, think about who at your medical center and your medical school could help you move things forward, because we all mentor lots of different people. So keeping that in mind is really important, because I think a lot of us really kind of have that tunnel vision and we think about just mentorship, from those within our field, but there's so many people outside of our field that can be incredible mentors. And I think that's really important as you start your job. So I love medical education. And one of the first things I did when I got here into Columbus, Ohio at Nationwide Children's was find out who the leaders in medical education were. And I made sure I had a meeting with them and talked through that because that can open doors and can give you opportunities that can be incredible. It doesn't have to be in our field. Again, it can be in these other areas that are so important and can give you such great job fulfillment. So again, think locally from an allergy standpoint, but also think about people who could mentor you from outside of our field. So we are so lucky in our field of allergy and immunology. I can tell you that there are incredible, incredible mentors across this country, and they don't have to be in your program. So if you're someone who loves immunology, loves asthma, drug allergy, think about who can be a mentor on a larger scale from across the country. Who can you work with, and how do you interact with them? And that's where our incredible societies, right? The college, the academy, CIS, always they play such a huge role in connecting our fits and their faculty and their membership. And it doesn't end when you finish fellowship, right? Like you will be on committees with these folks. You'll be writing papers with them, doing projects with them. So asking questions and thinking how you can learn more about our field and different areas is always, always something that you should consider as you move forward. Because I will tell you, and I've been in this field for 23 years now, and I have never emailed anyone and not gotten an answer back. Like with somebody like if I have a question or need help or thinking through something. So we have such a great field for that. So make sure you think through not just your local group, right? There's lots of wonderful local and state societies, but think about from a national standpoint. How do you take advantage of being at the academy or the college meeting? Do you go to a great lecture from somebody who you'd like to, know more about and learn more about their career? At the end of the lecture, go up and ask questions. Think about it. Next thing you know, you may have somebody to collaborate with or somebody who's now added to your mentor list. So definitely thinking about that locally and nationally. Um, I also want to put a plug in. Please pay it forward, pay it back, think forward. We're talking about all these great people that can be your mentors, but please remember that when somebody asks you to be a mentor, right? From a Chrysalis standpoint, from a Spark standpoint, when you get asked to be a mentor, think about the people that have mentored you and how much of a difference you can make to others. And so, making sure that again, you pay it forward and pay it backwards. And, everyone gets busy, but, really thinking through that and how we can help is really important. So the first four were diverse career paths, the different ways that you can practice. The fact that number two, you go down many different routes as you consider career options and as you go through a lifetime in our field. Number three, finding mentorship is just critical, and I cannot say that enough. And again, thinking about it locally and thinking about it nationally. And those things all kind of tie right into my number four, which is find local and national experiences. So we talked a little bit about that already. Both the academy and the college have great exploration options. I'm going to put in a plug. Sorry, Mari, I hope this is okay. But every year at the academy meeting, we have a careers in allergy and immunology session that I will say is hysterical because we always have these great speakers who talk about their careers and talk about how they've changed and give lots of little tidbits and life stories. So it's actually it's an entertaining and fun session, but it is so informative in different ways to get involved. It is so easy to get involved in our different societies. And so as you go to these meetings and you learn more about career paths, think about things like going to committee meetings, right? That's a great way to meet people at college, the academy, CIS, ATS. Like I can't even go down the whole list. AAP, we're so lucky. There's so many different organizations we can be involved with. So don't hesitate to engage within the societies. Go to a business meeting, show up, show that you can be an integral and important part of the committee. And that starts with during your fit time. And then definitely as you move into faculty time. And that's where you can also lean back in your colleagues within, whatever group you're in. And then, certainly now while you're a fellow, how do you get involved and have people and ask people to help you move forward with that? So again, looking for mentorship in the societies is important, but also engaging and being involved within our large societies can be incredibly helpful. And I will tell you, incredibly fulfilling. It has been just I feel so lucky every day to work with so many different wonderful people across the country. And honestly, it makes going to the meetings so much fun because then you know so many people and you have lots of people to hang out with and have coffee with and go to sessions with. And so getting engaged that way can bring a lot to your career. And it can take you down different trajectories also. So keep that in mind. So those first four are really important, but they are all under the umbrella of making sure that you find wellness while you're doing it. There is a whole session of this series on wellness, and I can't stress how important that is. Burnout is real, and you need to take care of yourself. And all these things I talked about, all these great opportunities, again, they'll change at different points in your life. There'll be times where you're full-time, times when you're part-time, times when you can say yes to committees and times when you can't say yes to committees. And that's all okay. What I always tell people is if you can't do something right now that you think is something that could be really helpful in your career and you're really interested in, if you have to say no, but do it in a way that it shows that your interest. I can't do it right now, but I would love if you would consider me next year or if this opportunity came up again, because I really would like to get involved. I just can't do it right now. Show that interest, but it's okay to say no because wellness is really important. And it's really important that you take care of yourself, your family, that we take care of each other. It's also okay if you say yes to something and you need some extra time and you need to ask for that. Ask for that. All these things we're talking about, all these great things you can do, they do take time. And so you need to make sure that you make that time for it, but also make the time for yourself. So I really can't stress how important wellness is in all of this, and taking care of that and taking care of yourself and knowing that things change is really important. I think back to my career and I've been incredibly lucky from a mentorship standpoint. But I will freely admit my first couple years in the field, I get and that's what I did this first couple of years and it was busy and I loved it. And as they got older, I had more and more time. So keep in mind that different points in your life, you'll have different times and different ways to get involved, and that's all okay. Again, if you're gonna say yes, show up and do a great job, but it's okay to say no. Just say it with with your passion for doing it another time if you're able to. So I guess those are my five.
Dr. Scherzer, thank you so much. That was such a wonderful, practical, um, and but still like detailed overview of all the different careers that we can choose in AI. And I agree. I really love the versatility and the diversity of our field. I think it's so unique and so special. And anyone who's discovered it is like so lucky, as I feel. I wanted to ask you if you could detail a little more your own journey on how you made the decisions for your own AI career. I know you mentioned that you had sought out leaders in medical education and then kind of went from there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah. So when I took my first attending job, I knew I wanted to be involved in medical education. So the first thing I did was figure out who the pediatric residency director was, who the pediatric clerkship was. At that point, we didn't have a fellowship. And I made sure I met with them and sat down with them and asked them if they'd be willing to help mentor me along the way. And so as different committees and different opportunities came up, they remembered that about me and helped pull me in to have those experiences. And one thing led to another. I'm currently the pediatric clerkship director at our medical center. And so part of that came from that first meeting I had with the then pediatric clerkship director. And so, people in medical education, they are always thinking about the next generation and what's going to happen next, and thinking about those kind of plans. And so if you're there and they know who you are and they know that you'll do a good job, you're part of their plans. So it really it takes just a little bit of time. It's just figuring out who those people are, and then sitting down and meeting with them. Um, I have told this story to many people, and hopefully I'm allowed to use names on this, but my engagement within the academy, I have just to thank Jordan Orange. Back I had just been on fellowship for a couple years, and there was an opportunity to possibly write an article with him on specific antibody deficiency. And they put out a call through basic and clinical immunology. And that reminds me, I'm going to talk a little bit about committees and intersections within the academy, but they put a call out like, does anyone want to help write this? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like 2 years out of fellowship, and he's like the smartest immunologist I've ever met. But I'll say yes, sure. And I actually became part of that team, and he really pulled me in and introduced me, and got me involved in our intersection, and the and really get involved with immunology within the academy, and that really snowballed and allowed me to have different experiences. And I can go back to that one moment in time and saying yes, and then just having really great mentorship. And I wouldn't have ever had those mentors without them reaching out and me reaching out, right? Mary Beth Fasano, Mitch Grayson, Brian Martin, the you think about the huge people in our field, Wesley Burks, like people want to help, they want to mentor, but you just have to reach out and ask for it. And then again, when you are able to say yes, do a great job. So it really, it's that we have so many wonderful people in our field who want to help, but also kind of putting yourself out there and saying, I would love to be part of this. How can I do this? How can I get involved? How can I get engaged? I do want to take, if it's okay, we talked a little bit about committees and societies. And, when you think about different ways to get involved and engaged, both within the college and the academy, by getting involved in the academy, intersections committees, within the college, different committees, you are on email lists then. When opportunities come up that you can, move forward with in your career, you won't know about them a lot of times unless you're on those listservs for intersections, for committees, again, within lots of our national societies. So it's not hard to do. If you need help, I am happy to help you. Reach out to anyone. But getting involved and engaged, it's like it snowballs on itself, right? So you start showing up to meetings, and people know who you are. And so I can't tell you how much that has been the spice of my career. And I know that it will be the spice of yours if you like working with those kind of groups. And so it really is, again, lots of opportunities out there. Sometimes they come to you, and sometimes you have to seek them out.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Thank you for that. On a personal note, I've been in private practice for almost a year now, and there are so many things that I love about it so much, but from time to time, I do find myself missing the academic side of things. And so I just wanted to ask, in addition to, attending the conferences, which is really great, and you touched on a lot of it in terms of, staying involved and with the committees and all that. Do you have any other advice for someone who is kind of considering private practice, but
Yeah.
feels like they
Yeah.
might miss out on the latest and greatest in academics?
So, to me, we are all one community. Wherever you practice, you're one community. Taking a look around and seeing, do you have a local or regional allergy society? Because so many cities across the country do, and they're so powerful and so wonderful to work with and build this just amazing network. So engaging that way, both locally and regionally. And then nationally, whether you work in private practice or academics, we need you to be part of the academy, the college. The ABAI is an incredible place. There's lots of opportunities within the American Board of Allergy and Immunology. And you definitely, it doesn't matter where you practice, you definitely can get engaged and involved. So just thinking through different ways, I know a lot of people, both in academics and in private practice, who are very engaged in like the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's a wonderful way to share how important our field is, not just with each other, but also with lots of people that that work outside of our field. So I do think private practice, academics, there's so many ways to stay engaged in our field. I always tell people we are a small but mighty field.
Absolutely, we are. That's great. Did you have any kind of final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, yeah. Get involved, get engaged, do it to the ability that you can. Again, we all understand and respect there's different parts in your life where you have more and less time to give, but when you have the time, it is so fulfilling. And you're paying it back, paying it forward. So just, keep that in mind. And if you ever have questions about getting engaged or involved, there's so many people within all of the societies who want to help. And I think there's a lot of power in us all working together.
Absolutely, I love that. Thank you. Before signing off, I would like to thank Dr. Scherzer again for volunteering her time. We appreciate the information and guidance that you've shared. If you have any follow-up questions after viewing this session, please reach out to our FIT staff liaison, Mari at mduran@quadai.org. See you soon.